Hi guys! Okay, that was a fail. Hi everyone, again. So I'm a current college student who applied to college in the 2022-23 school year and received admission to a few top schools, including Northwestern and the BSMD program that I currently go to. And since then, I've edited and looked at a number of people's college essays. So in this video, I thought I'd give a little bit of a rundown on some common mistakes that I have seen that you should make sure to avoid if you're applying to college right now. I know deadlines are fast approaching, or like literally this week, or if you're going to apply to college in the future, then still just good general knowledge to have in the back of your brain. Okay, a huge mistake that I often see, especially in students who have really impressive resumes who are applying to selective schools, are that their essays end up reading a little bit like a laundry list, where they're just kind of trying to list every impressive accomplishment that they've had during high school, which is totally understandable because you do want to highlight those things, and it can feel really backward to not want to talk about every single thing that you've done, because obviously you put time into your extracurriculars, you put time into the awards that you received, and you want to make sure that your schools know that you did these things. But I think sometimes it can work a little bit against you if you're listing so many, just one impressive accomplishment after another, because the people reading your applications are at the end of the day also human. And so personally, when I'm reading essays that are just kind of talking about one exciting accomplishment after another, in my head I am thinking, yes, this person is impressive, but all of those things individually kind of lose their value a little bit if I'm just reading about so many of them, if that makes sense. And it also just becomes harder to follow your narrative and understand who you are as a person if your essay is really just a list of your accomplishments. What I would recommend doing is picking 2 to 3 of the things that you're most proud of and talking about those during your essays. And that kind of leads me to my second tip / thing to avoid, which is telling and not showing, merely listing your accomplishments without taking the reader through the process of how you accomplish those things, and most importantly, what you took from them. And this is something that I've heard actual admissions counselors or people who read applications talk about. For instance, if for example you're on your school's robotics team and you guys place first in state for robotics or whatever it might be, don't just list that in an essay, but instead you can talk about the journey of getting to state, or how you built the robot, specifically how you contributed to that project, and also talk about how it influenced you. So maybe it reinforced your passion for engineering and the fact that you want to study engineering in college, or maybe working on a team showed you that that's a dynamic that you really enjoy, so when you go to college you want to continue to pursue robotics, and that's something that you're going to add to the campus community, is starting or joining a robotics team. So basically, show, don't tell. Okay, tip number 3 / thing to avoid is make sure that when you're writing your college essays, you are writing about you, and the focus is only on you. And I understand that there are certain prompts, especially within the Common App, that allow you to sort of explore the influence that someone else has had on your life, and that can be a really effective thing to do. I've seen people do it really well in essays. But the most important thing is to make sure that the majority of the essay is spent talking about the influence that that person had on your life, and how you're going to take what you learned from them or whatever it is about them that inspired you to sort of be successful in your own life. And this can be a little bit challenging, especially when we're talking about somebody that really inspires us, or maybe has a life story that is far more interesting than our own. But at the end of the day, what's more important in a college essay than telling a good story is telling a story about you, and showcasing who you are. So you really want to make sure that if you are talking about someone else in your essay, really only talk about that person in the context of how they impacted you and what you're going to do with that. Okay, my last tip is for essays that might ask you to talk about a challenge that you've experienced in life, or if that's something that you're just talking about, within the framework of a different prompt. So with these essays, the most important thing is to not fall into the trap of only talking about that challenging experience without talking about, again, this theme of what you took from it, what you learned from it. Especially if there is something genuinely difficult and traumatic that's happened to you in life, it can feel like maybe the best thing is to sort of focus on that story to elicit emotion in your reader, and to make them feel as if that you have experienced adversity. because obviously, you know, adversity builds character. But the most important thing to do is, yes, do those things. Yes, tell your story and make sure to tell it in an emotional way. But you want to spend, in most cases, the majority of that essay talking about what you took from that challenge, and how, you know, the adversity that you experienced shaped who you are today. I think nowadays people like to sort of like joke about the fact that you need some kind of like crazy sad story to get into college, but that's obviously not true. And also, even if you do have a story like that, like those people may have a leg up because of the way that they're able to talk about how they have sort of like handled that adversity and come through, you know, more resilient. And that's something that anybody can do, even if you haven't had something horrible happen to you in life. So just don't get caught up in focusing your essay on the fact that you experienced adversity rather than how that adversity made you more resilient. And also, I do want to add, there might be specific circumstances where it is important for the focus of an essay to be about just the challenge you experienced, and how that might have like limited your ability to do well in school or focus on school. But I think in those specific circumstances, it's better to include that information in like the additional information section of the Common App, or maybe your specific schools you're applying to have spaces for that, but not necessarily within a supplemental essay, if that makes sense. Okay, my very last tip, and I don't mean to be a negative Nelly here, and I do think this one is mostly self-explanatory, but I've just been surprised by how many essays I've received like this to edit. Do not turn in an essay that is written entirely by AI. Humans can spot it out. They also have AI detection tools that can spot it out. So just don't do that. And this is not me saying not to use AI at all. I think AI can be such a great brainstorming tool for writing. I also think it can be great at like pointing out areas for improvement that might be needed in your essays. I think in 2025, it's just not productive at all to tell students not to use AI. I think instead we need to like teach people how to use AI productively, rather than not to use it at all. But if you use AI to write your college essay, not only will people most likely know, but even if they don't, it's probably not going to produce that good of an essay, because AI really only like produces something that will like sound like a good college essay, and something that sounds like a good college essay is probably something that numerous other students have written before. So it's not going to make you stand out. Okay, those are the mistakes that I've seen most commonly made in essays that I've read. I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and like my video. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will be more than happy to respond. And thank you so much for watching, and good luck writing all of your college essays and meeting those upcoming deadlines. Bye!